integral yoga is this amazing thing where we bring the supramental, help to bring the supramental descent into the Earth's atmosphere. I think two of them almost got up to leave right away. My God, this person's crazy. What are they talking about? So none of that today.
My question to you, Don. Good morning.
Yes.
Good to see you. And good to
Good
see
to
everybody.
see you. Hi. Are you awake?
Hi.
Are you awake? Are you dreaming, Jayashri?
Yes, of course.
Yes, good.
Yes.
What is your question?
My question is, why are we talking to teenagers and fashionistas? Why are we not talking to the community who are mature adults and know the philosophy, know a couple of other philosophies too, and
Right.
have good maturation with practice? Why are we not talking to mature souls rather than to
I'll give
people
you a
who
good
are out
answer.
there?
25 years ago, I met someone who'd been teaching integral yoga psychology for a group for 25 years. And I said to them, I want you to tell me, without quoting, tell me right now in your experience at this moment, how is the physical mind acting? I said, everyone here knew the definitions. And no one, I kept challenging them. That's a quote, that's a quote. And no one could give me an answer. These are people who are experts in Oroville and the ashram. So the mother, I'm following the mother's example. When the mother wrote the articles on education, she was not writing for the community. She said, I'm writing even for the most intransigent atheists. I want to give everyone the inspiration of progress. So her articles on physical, vital, and mental education were not written for the community. They were written for everyone, and even people who had no interest in yoga. Now, I've personally followed that example that when I write, I've written a lot on yoga, I'm thinking, if I met I had a 12-year-old patient about 6 years ago, and he said to me, every night I go to sleep, I try and imagine infinity. He never read anything on yoga or meditation. And I said, can I talk to him in a way he would understand integral yoga without ever mentioning anything to do with integral yoga? And I used to meet, many of the people I did disability evaluations for were Baptists. This is in South Carolina, the southeastern United States. And they were fundamentalists, and they only knew what they grew up with, their pastor. And they'd be weeping and crying and their lives falling apart. And I'd say, I couldn't say to them, we'll surrender it all to the mother. They wouldn't know what that meant. I'd say, where is Christ? That meant something to them. Now in New York City, where most of the people I knew were atheists, I couldn't say that. So I feel, and I've been involved in this path for 45 years, I feel like if I can't tell you what symbolism in integral yoga is in 50 different ways, from, I could talk to people here about the metaphysical implications of looking at different dimensions and different domains and seeing the epistemological implications of, and I can go on with that. And most people here would say, okay, we're going to tune in next week. So I could do a philosophic thing. I also have found, especially in Oroville and among community for years, that when people are so used to using this language, that when you say, okay, tell me in your experience right now, what does this mean? And people generally often can't do it. So it's great you asked that question, because it's kind of, I should have had a chance to explain this. Everyone is here. I'll give you one more example. This is very helpful. I remember being in an OM. OM is AUM, the All USA meetings.
I'm aware, yes. I'm aware of that.
It's about 20 years ago. And two of us were sitting on the floor, and someone was speaking about, it was one of those ones where I don't think they spoke in any word that was less than 6 syllables. They're speaking on the philosophical ramifications of some obscure passages in Savitri and whatever. And one of us raised her hand and said, I'm sorry, I have a question. Oh, yeah, you have a question? Okay. What is the integral yoga when you're brushing your teeth? I thought of another example for today. We all have this WhatsApp. If someone posted a picture of a beautiful sunset or glorious golden lights of the sun, I think everyone would know without even any explanation. That's something that's symbolic. It reflects something of integral yoga. If I posted a picture of the rubble of an earthquake and some bloody limbs coming out of under a building, and just post that with no explanation, people will be like, oh my God, Don, why did you post that? What does that have to do with anything to do with the yoga? And asking that question would say to me, well, my first thought would be, well, all life is yoga. And Sri Aurobindo said, actually, he says in synthesis, if you can't speak of the yoga from the point of view of any text, any scripture, in any language, and Mother says this many times too, then I'll say it for me, I don't really have a sense of what the yoga is. So this could be challenging, but let me give you an overview of what we're going to do today.
Can I just respond to what you just said?
Sure, yeah.
Actually, you gave so many examples that I kind of drifted off a little in the center.
Sure.
But because I focused on your answer right at the beginning, which was 25 years ago. It started with that. 25 years ago, you had a certain experience and people couldn't answer your question.
Right.
But this is 25 years later. And I think in the last few years, to my experience, in the last, I would say 5 years, there's been a mass awakening of consciousness on the planet. Sure. People have become much more aware than they were 10 years ago, I think. People are more working on their spiritual aspect because they have turned away from the material. It's the subjective age. We keep talking about the subjective age. People are going within, and I think people are more aware now. So if you were to ask that question now, I think there would be good responses. Yeah. So anyhow, that's my take on it. I don't think I'm a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old. No, I've spent a lot of time doing my practices. Yeah. But thank you, Don. I appreciate your work.
It was the perfect question to open with. I've had conversations in the last few weeks that are pretty much the same with people involved for 50 years. So by the way, I agree. I think since the pandemic, and even since, last year, since people have been getting out more,
yes,
there's been a radical change.
Yes.
Let's see. If we're all here have become more awakened and more dedicated, this shouldn't be a problem for us. So let me give an overview. So I think of teens because the mother, again, I'm thinking of the mother. The mother always spoke to children. And I love, my first love in spiritual teachers was Krishnamurti, who often went to his schools where there were children 12 to 14, and sometimes older high school students. And he would speak in such simple language and such everyday, ordinary language. And I've always said to myself, if I can't do that, I don't understand this. That's my thing. So we're going to start, I'm going to put up a whiteboard, and we're going to all together describe the integral yoga. I'm going to, in ordinary language, so we're not going to use words like psychic being or jivatman or aspiration, rejection, surrender, remember and offer, all the things we usually use without possibly fully understanding them.
This is good. And
then we're going to, thank you, Sharon. Then we're going to look at what is a symbol. Now, I can tell you right away, Vladimir gave a beautiful definition in the first presentation. A symbol is a reflection of something on a higher plane. Can we? Yeah, okay. Right? The form that reflects something on a higher plane. So we're not going to use the term higher. We're not going to use that term. That's an official. It's a beautiful definition. We're not going to use that. Okay. So number one, what's integral yoga in simple language? What's a symbol? How does knowing symbols? I thought this was great for this whole course. I love Jung. I love hearing Mother and Sri Aurobindo talk about symbols. I love this. And I think some people here must be asking, this is wonderful. This is fascinating. How, when I'm angry, when I'm struggling with a craving, when I'm confused, sad, lonely, feeling disconnected to something, or not even me, when I'm aware of a movement in the mind, life, and body of this, How does knowing about symbolism support the yoga? Right? And finally, we're going to look at, these should be very easy. This could all take 5 minutes. When we talk about symbols, I notice we almost always talk about positive symbols. You know, in the 7th chapter of the Gita, especially up to the 10th chapter, Krishna is teaching Arjuna, you can see the divine reflected, most of all, he gives a long, long list of things. And that's true, but we also, if we know all life is yoga, then, do I have something really ugly here? I got my headphone. Oh, here we go. Oh, I got my kettlebell here, right? So really, is the divine, 18 pounds, I'm showing off here. Is the divine any less present, maybe not as manifest, but any less present here than in, here we go. Let's put them side by side, right? I'm challenging everyone, right? I realize this is a challenge. I don't think I can hold this much longer. Okay. Yeah, okay.
Shall we answer or we wait?
No, we're gonna have questions. Can someone give an overview? So it's integral yoga, symbolism, how they relate, and positive, neutral, and negative symbols. Can someone say in their own words what today's about? In about a sentence or two? Sharon, you were brave before. You want to give it a try? So what are we doing today? We're going to first look at what? The meaning of, anyone can jump in.
We are waiting for you to tell us, actually.
Oh no, I just said it. I see. Oh, this is good. Swami Sarvapriyananda has hundreds of talks on Vedanta. He's straight Advaita Vedanta on YouTube. And he has this wonderful thing. Actually, Vladimir, you can help me with the Sanskrit. What are the three things? It's Shravana, Manasa, and the three listening, hearing, understanding, and contemplating. What is the third? I was trying to remember. Anyway,
Nididhyasana.
That's it. Okay. Now he does this. Oh, Jayashri, this is a perfect example. So, Vladimir, you pronounce it so beautifully. Can you say those three Sanskrit words slowly again so we can hear? The first one is hearing, which is
Shravana.
Shravana.
Yes.
Second is thinking, which is Manasa.
Manana. Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. Yeah.
Nidhyasana. Okay. Now, I'll bet there are people, even today, in this more enlightened age, who could speak on a series of 5 lectures. And if you actually ask them to demonstrate it, they might not be able to do it. So Swami Sarvapriyananda always says, okay, first, when I talk, are you hearing me? You know, like you say, did you hear me? You know, like you're not just like, yeah, I repeat the words, I'm hearing you. Then he says, did you understand it? Not just hearing, you know, if you heard me, you can repeat what I said. So that's the test. If you heard me, you can repeat. This is about integral yoga. What are symbols? How symbols help you with the yoga, and how we can look at negative symbols as well as positive. Okay, so you heard that? Okay. Did you understand what I said? We're going to check that out. In fact, I love this. For Nidhyasana, Vladimir, you know what he says? He says, did you get it? Is it real? Jayashri, this is why I love the simplicities. He's translating these very, very profound Sanskrit terms. He says to his audiences, did you hear me? Did you hear it? Do you understand it? And then I love, he's so beautiful. He has such a radiant, beautiful presence. Did you get it? Is it real?
You remember in Avatar, I can see you. I see you.
I see you, right? That's right. Do you see me? Oh man, I see you, man. You know, do you hear me? Do you get it? Okay. So who has heard me? This is the way I used to teach in college, and people say, you're so tough. No, I'll give you the answers later, but you're never going to attend a talk by me again. Don't realize, like, okay. So can someone, again, did you hear me? What is today's talk? What are the themes of today's talk? No one wants to try. I'll say it again. Gita Shri is going to volunteer.
You spoke of integral yoga.
Right.
About the symbols, understanding.
Mhm.
And Sri Aurobindo connected with the symbols or integral yoga?
Integral yoga, that's good.
Yeah.
How symbols help us. Understanding symbols help us with the yoga. And what about symbols I was concerned about particularly? We all look at positive ones. We don't look
And
at
negative.
there. Perfect. Thank you, Judith. Thank you very much.
I see you.
Well, I don't know. You heard me. We'll see if you see me. Okay. I'm going to call up a whiteboard and we're going to do this all together.
Don, can I say something?
Sure, of course.
So actually, by a coincidence, today morning I was reading one of the essays from Arya by Sri Aurobindo. And there he is talking about equality, and he's talking about a oneness of attitude to all persons, all things,
Yes.
and all happenings.
Right.
And I was also thinking, like, there is somebody I really like, and there is somebody I really don't like.
Right.
And a few days ago on Twitter, I was discussing this concept of having preferences with, there's this guy at Delhi Aurobindo Ashram, and we were talking about making choices and having preferences. I thought Mother had specifically said that you should have no preferences, meaning that you should never have to choose between A and B, that you should like be the same towards option A and option B, whether it is good or bad.
Mhm.
But this guy Mohit, he told me that he produced the quote from Mother, and he said that that's not what Mother is saying. Mother is saying that you should always choose between what is good and what is bad, but then you should decide what is good and what is bad. So Mother was giving the example of preferring cleanliness to dirt. She's saying that obviously you prefer cleanliness to dirt. And to not have preferences actually means that you always have the courage to choose the right thing over the wrong thing. Now, I'd been confused about this for 20 years. So Mohit and I had like a pretty intense conversation around that.
Yeah. Radhika,
But,
could you hold that thought there? I mean, I'll say, this is the mother at work. You have brought up, really, if we can get some insight in today's presentation to what, because I was confused about that for years too. And I'll give you a quick answer that both are true. But you have to know practically in what way both are true. Your friend is correct, and the mother has said what your friend said also. Let's hold that for, can you hold your thoughts now? I want to hold these thoughts. This is great. I want to start our definition of integral yoga. Please remember this. Jayashree's opening challenge was wonderful. Why am I'm going to be really tough about what words we can use for defining integral yoga. And keep in mind, gets right. Radhika, actually, Jayashree gave you the answer. He's been confused about this for 20 years. I'm sure Radhika has been reading this for me. She could give an intellectual answer. She sat down to all of this. But she's asking practically, in this moment when, okay, let me make this real and then we'll do the next thing. Let me just say this, okay. I have been struggling to learn new software and new apps the last year. Jan and I are creating an online course. Now I'm supposed to be a yogi, perfect equanimity, right? And you could have seen me a month ago. I'm trying to add this new community called Peerboard to my course platform. And Jan comes in like, I'm trapped. My whole life for the rest of my life is going to be hopelessly struggling with, I'm 70, I have dementia. What is wrong with me? Okay, this is not equanimity, right? I know this, okay. So on Wednesday, I'd already hired an expert and she's gonna take care of it. So I said, this is it, I'm free. I already know as doesn't matter what's happening outside, I should be equal and free no matter what, okay. By the way, this is all these shoulds. I should have no preferences. I should do this. As yogis, there's no shoulds, okay. So the next morning she writes me and says, Don, you sent me some passwords by email, which is really bad, right? So please download this password manager. It's very easy to use. I spent 3 hours on Thursday and I could barely figure it out. And I felt like, I told Jan, I felt like bursting into tears or into rage. And I'm aware of this. Okay. So keeping that in mind, and by the way, I've written a book on integral yoga with some very, very complicated research. I could tell you the answer in perfect integral yoga language of what Don should do and how to deal with it. I've heard it. I understand it. Do I get it? Is it real for me? So I want, at the end of this period, we really have to get started on this. I want to have integral yoga be a bit more real, no matter how many years you've been involved, 46 years for me, whatever for you. I want it to be more real. I want symbolism to be more than an intellectual or emotional understanding. I want it to be more real. And I want the sense of all things as symbols, some manifest in the divine more or less, to be more real. With that, let's go to the whiteboard. Let's start. Zoom meeting, open. Here we go. And tell me it's not going to work. There we go. Okay. And what is integral yoga? So let's get some text here. Now let's start. It's German for forbidden. Forbidden word.
It's intriguing yoga.
Huh? Intriguing? Anyway, let's see. Psychic being, remember and offer, aspiration, rejection. You can tell me if I left any out. Just surrender, give all to the mother. Okay, Jivatman. Oh, just generally, no Sanskrit. Okay, 13.
Are we supposed to be doing something, Don, or are you?
No, I'll tell you. Okay, did it
Okay.
work? Did
I
lose
just saw some names floating around and you reading. I thought, oh, are people posting already? Okay.
No. Looks like I lost it. Huh. Maybe I'm not doing this right. Do you all see? Do you see me? Can you see this typing?
No, we don't see it.
You don't see it. Then maybe we won't.
Well, we see what is integral yoga and then some names, Sonia, Vladimir. Oh, there we see. You see me typing. Okay.
Oh, good. Okay. All right. Forbidden. Do you see this? Forbidden words?
No.
Okay. Well, maybe we can't do this. Oh, that's shocking. Okay, I'm going to close this. Okay, sorry. I taught myself how to use the whiteboard yesterday, and it may not be ready for prime time. Okay. So now I'm just going to ask you. Oh, that's really too bad. I wanted you to be able to see it in real time. All right. Mother is asking for more spontaneity. That's good. Okay. So without using any familiar language, and I'll mention some. No Sanskrit. We're not going to use the word remember and offer, aspiration, rejection, surrender, just surrender, psychic being, vital. Okay, you've met, so it doesn't have to be a 13-year-old. You've met someone who has felt something in your presence. They're not quite sure what to say, but they say, there's something about you seem to have this sort of happiness or calmness. It's quite wonderful. Tell me about it. What is it that you do? What is it that you're into? And there's someone who you can tell is rather skeptical, perhaps, of anything religious or spiritual. And you want to tell them, what is this? What is it about? Anyone just jump in.
And Sonia was suggesting, Don, that we can also just type in the chat box also, and instead of the whiteboard, if you'd rather do that. So
yeah, it's not quite real time, but sure, yeah, that's a good idea.
Don, you can give an example first, and we will follow.
Okay. You can all write too. This is actually how I often start. It's really babyish, but you can just jump in. Anyone you want, just jump in. I'm being very, very careful. I'm thinking about, what can I tell this person that they're not going to be, okay, good, let's take this. Vinesh, can you say it without using the word God? Let's go back to that. Say, anyone can jump in. Seeing something that gives me a sense, I'll just say it out loud. So you're talking to an atheist, and I'm thinking, what is it like for me when this is what I'm inviting you to do. What is it like for you inwardly when you have a glimpse, intuitive sense of seeing God in everything? For me, I'm using really, really everyday language. Suddenly, everything has this sense of larger than life. I could say something shining that gets a little bit living from inside out. Okay. Can people hold off on chats for a moment? I'm going to take a few of these. Oh, okay. Living from inside out, seeing beauty in everything. Stacy, can you pause? Are you there on your?
I'm here.
Okay. Can you say a little more? I love this. Say a little more. What do you mean seeing beauty in everything? What does that mean?
You
What's
want me to
that
speak
like?
it?
Yeah,
You want me to speak it?
sure, yeah.
Just that everything has an element of beauty in it if you have the eyes to see it.
What's it? Can I ask further? Because this is great. This is great. What does it mean? The artist Cezanne said, "We don't need new things to see. We need new eyes to see with." He talked about looking at a carrot for 3 hours before he drew it, until he began to see a much, much deeper beauty in it. Okay, let me go on. Watching yourself as actor in your own life. That's a phrase also. I think seeing beauty in everything, seeing God everywhere. I don't know, Ganesh, if that connects to seeing beauty in everything, seeing something deeper, seeing with different eyes. Sharon, how does watching yourself as an actor connect to seeing beauty in everything? How does it help you see? This is going to get back to Radhika's question about preferences. How does seeing yourself as an actor? Some people, by the way, learn meditation and they become very cold and distant and detached. I don't think you mean that. Go ahead.
No, because if I'm watching myself at every moment as an actor in my own life, and I suddenly see something and I judge it as ugly, then I'm immediately aware that I've judged it as ugly and I've looked at it with the wrong set of eyes. And
Right.
I can shift immediately because I've been watching myself on the stage, so to speak. I mean,
Yes, and let's take that right to Radhika's question. So I talk to a person and my feeling is I don't like them. And I prefer to be with this person I like. Now we shift eyes, could be seeing God, seeing beauty. And if you could, as I'm saying this, can you follow along in your own life? All of you must know someone you don't like.
Many.
Gita Shri is thinking, I don't know, I love everybody. There must be someone, I'm trying hard. Okay, I'll
No.
give you time. Oh, no, let me continue. I'll give you time to think of someone you don't like, or maybe in the past, you love everyone now. And you're aware, as Radhika said, of preferences. I prefer to be with that person rather than this. Now you shift eyes, see the beauty in everything. And you may still be aware that it's better for your sadhana because of the vibration to be with that person, but you're no longer doing it from egoistic preferences. I'm going to use integral language. You're doing it from divine preference. So my sense, Radhika, is that what Mother was saying is to not have egoistic preferences. And actually, that's even wrong, because we all, until we're supermentalized, we're all going to have egoistic preferences, even if we don't identify with them. So yes, that's great. Radhika, thank you. There's preference and choice. These are just words. You can say this in a million ways. There's going to be vital aversions and attachments until we're totally transformed. But we can choose by taking the different eyes that Sharon said, we can choose to see beauty, to see God in everything, and we then follow that inner guidance to choose rather than make a vital preference. So some of this is words, and back to Jayashri, this is exactly why I love the idea of using as many different words as we can, because we'll get stuck in a confusion for 4 years. Then we realize, oh, we hear someone say the same thing, but in slightly different words. I never understood what that meant. Okay, this is enough for, this is great. This is not 100% all of integral yoga. We haven't gotten to the aim and the transformation, but this is a great start. Let's switch now. Yeah, this is perfect timing. Let's pause for a minute. Let me give you the overview again. Let's pause. We've begun to explore, to challenge ourselves, especially those of us like myself, been in this for decades, and say, can I communicate integral yoga using new language, other language? And we have, yeah, thank you, Samya, for the chat alternative. It's perfect, that's great. Now we're going to switch and look at symbols. Before we look at how symbols relate to the yoga, let's just get a sense of symbols. And again, I'll give you the definition of a symbol. A symbol is a form that is a reflection of something on a higher or deeper plane. Is that right? Is that pretty much what you said, Vladimir? Pretty much, okay, yeah, okay. Now, let's have an experience of symbols. I was gonna prepare a lot of photos, but you know these things. Okay, if I go out, Jan and I drive about, we're blessed. If you drive about 15 minutes away, we can go on the Blue Ridge Parkway, and there's a beautiful, you're surrounded by lines of trees, and suddenly there's this opening. And you can pull over to an overlook, and you see this vast, open, spacious views going for miles and miles. And anybody, I don't even have to put in words, you know, if you stand there, and Jayashi's right, I think many people are so much more awakening. People know if you ask them, what's going on when you stand there? And there's this unbelievable stillness and sense of vastness. That's a reflection of something, yeah? Everyone knows what I'm talking about, right? Something deeper and higher. You don't need to explain this. It's simple, it's obvious. Now, they have this fruit, I think it's from the Caribbean, called ugly fruit. It's really funny looking. I went to my supermarket recently, I was looking at the fruit stand, and it's a very unpleasant, I would prefer not to look at ugly fruit. It's actually rather kind of gives you an unpleasant feeling in the stomach. So I'm going to ask a rhetorical question. Why, when I go to the Blue Ridge Parkway overview and see the mountains, why do I immediately have this obvious sense of beauty and vastness, a reflection of the Atman, of the Brahma, whatever? And I go to the supermarket and I look at ugly fruit, I don't have the same sense. What is that? I remember I used to, for many years, I had the discipline of repeating the divine name. I can't tell you how many times I'd walk into my school or workplace or a market, and I'd be at the door, open the door and say, I'm going to keep repeating the name, going to keep repeating the name. And the next time I remembered was as I was leaving, I said, I forgot again. Why do we forget the divine? Because I'm absorbed in disliking ugly fruit and, oh, this eggplant's so beautiful. It's going to taste so good. Maybe I'll get some extra cookies tonight, or my favorite potato chips, or whatever, right? And suddenly the divine's not there. These are all symbols of hunger and craving and greed and desire and aversion, right? If we live in the world seeing everything as symbolic of our own egoistic desires and fears and anger and etc., there's no room, you know. So I'm going to ask people, you can now start putting stuff in chat. What is it? What is a symbol that includes a definition or a description that includes both the vast, beautiful mountain view and that incredible, wide, endless, infinite sky, and the ugly fruit? and the latest mocha chocolate chip ice cream over in the frozen food section. What is a symbol? And you're not allowed to say a form that reflects something on a higher, deeper plane. You can jump in person, you can go in chat. I've given you some clues, gives you a feeling, it gives you. What is a symbol? Yin yang. What does that mean in English, Teresa?
The symbol of the Tai Chi too, where there's
Sure.
the dark and the light. So above and below, positive, negative, however you want to see it, mother, father. So it's
Okay.
a symbol of opposites.
Right, okay. What is that blue? Is that a cabinet behind you? Right
Yes.
behind you.
Yep.
Okay. What does it mean to say that symbol, that cabinet is a symbol? Symbol of what?
To me, the cabinet's a symbol of a place where I could store stuff. It's a symbol of something useful. Beauty. It's also beauty. It's nice to look at.
Okay. Okay, let me stop. That's great. I love it. That's perfect. When you look at everyone, by the way, look at the cabinet. It's quite lovely, by the way. Beautiful color. I love the blue color. It's a Jayashri. Let's take, when Jayashri first taught the dream course, we were talking about symbols and dreams. Imagine this is a dream right now. This is a great way. By the way, I find this is a wonderful way to get a sense of symbolism in daily life. Imagine we're all having a dream. And in the dream, we're talking to Teresa and Charles, and we all notice, oh, there's this beautiful blue cabinet behind them. It's blue, right? It's a certain size. I'm giving you some clues now about symbols. It's a certain size. It's at a distance. Is this evoking your symbolic consciousness? It's at a distance between them. Oh, it's between Charles and Teresa and the image. It's under this other blue picture. Isn't that meaningful? Right? There's a certain distance between the picture and the cabinet, and between the cabinet and Charles. Anyone want to jump in? Anyone else want to jump in? When you begin to see Jayashri, she's good. She's really good at this. Is the expert.
To me, it is a symbol of the love shared between them, which is very
Oh.
private and personal and full of
Oh,
beauty.
thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Let me repeat that. The cabinet between, which we see physically, you see how this is a symbol of some other dimension. Physically, we see it between Teresa and Charles, and Jayashri has told us it's a symbol of the love between them. There's that space. Even though we see a physical space, we know that spiritually there's no space between them because they're integrally connected. So, okay, do we have something? Oh boy, no one wants to answer because they realize they have to talk. So, we have anything that
It's a secrecy.
a secret. Oh,
That's what I thought.
cabinet is a symbol. Oh, I love that.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Symbol of something hidden. And what is it? As soon as I hear the word hidden and secrecy, I feel there's this depth. It's not just a little secret. It's like there's this, right? Do you know what I mean? There's this depth of inwardness suddenly. So we're learning, Stacey, about discrimination, stepping back, seeing God in everything, seeing everything as a dream, seeing the love, beauty reflected in things, seeing inner relationships reflected in the outer, right? Okay. I'm looking at the pictures. Who's here? I guess I shouldn't say this. I want to talk about neutral symbols. Okay. So I can't see any pictures of it. I don't know, this cup's too nice to be neutral. Oh, here we go. Oh, I think this is almost an ugly book cover. I use Logic Pro for my music software. I find this is a particularly dull, uninspired book cover. It's not really ugly. It's certainly not inspiring. It's, it's okay. So someone besides our symbol expert Jayashri, can someone tell me, we see, it's very sort of, very neutral, ordinary typeface. This is actually sound waves here. And these are also sound waves, right? So you see a picture of sound waves with kind of unpleasant, slightly unpleasant green, little blue here, you know. If you happen to have the artist who drew this, I apologize, but yeah.
Actually, we have to step back from the judging whether it is pleasing us or not if we want to see the symbolism.
Okay.
Symbolism is very different. It is not staying in the same I like it or I want it,
Exactly.
or it is not fitting into my context in this moment of time.
Right.
The doors of that cupboard behind that, they are the doors. The doors are the symbols. They are locked. So there's something is locked within. It's not yet open. So I see it very differently in a way.
Well,
I
I probably am not, I'm not getting
pleasing.
across my idea clearly, because the reason that let me say it a different way. The Dalai Lama has an exercise in which he asks you to take someone that you love and evoke deeper feelings of compassion and love towards them. And he says, take someone who's neutral. You don't have strong feelings of like or dislike, and see if you can find within yourself the same sense. Then take someone towards whom you feel great aversion and try to do the same thing. So I'm trying, probably not doing it well, trying to get across the same thing that Vladimir just said. Normally, when we try to step back and see the divine symbolism and everything, my concern often is that we don't look carefully enough at our preferences. We still bring in our preferences, and our preferences tend to be for what I call positive symbols. So what I'm inviting people to do is look at something negative like this, or say neutral. It's not necessarily inspiring. And can you let go of your preferences, let go of the like and dislike, let go of the neutrality, and find the hidden, the secrecy, the deeper, the yin yang, the vastness like the sky, etc. Gidishri just wrote.
Then
Listen.
you may see the beauty, yes. Then you may
Right.
see the beauty of the book.
Exactly. And I'm going to take something like, this is kind of a mess. I have a bunch of pens and flash drives. Someone might find it sort of unpleasant. I like things orderly. It's a little kind of a mess, you know. And so the first thing, to come back to Radhika's point, Mother and Sri Aurobindo often will say, you'll say to them, okay, so I shouldn't have preferences. Okay, if I in my surface consciousness am making an egoic effort to repress preferences, I'm kind of stuck in the same dualistic dilemma. I would put it, can I find that in me which doesn't have preferences? And from there, make a choice. Let me give an overview again of the whole day, because we may be getting lost. So we're starting, my aim in this whole presentation is to give you a way to relate to symbols that's directly connected to integral yoga. So I began by inviting you all to investigate what's the integral yoga, not using your regular framework, not to deny or, not to acknowledge all of our, whatever our experiences, but just to challenge us, to challenge our physical minds to be plastic and to open to as many ways of seeing it as possible. And with that, I think was beautiful. I think it was really beautiful where we got to. With that, we go to symbolism. First, we look at integral yoga. What is a symbol? Not just using all the words that we know, but once again, opening our minds, getting silent, and opening to new ways of seeing it. Okay. I jumped ahead to let's look at preferences, our initial preferences of good, neutral, and negative, and start to let go of them and see deeper than our surface mind preferences. That's it. One thing we haven't done yet, we haven't quite said, and you can jump in, I'll just say, because I really want to get to the negative symbols. I didn't say, how does knowing symbols and knowing it, really getting it viscerally, how does that help us practice integral yoga? I'll give my answer. If anyone else wants to jump in, that's fine. It's actually exactly what we're doing now. I can read Savitri. Have you ever noticed this? I've talked about this with Vladimir, we talked about this. You can read Savitri, and at some point you recognize, oh, I'm reading this with my surface mind. Do you know how to you can tell, it's, you may be feeling very inspired, very beautiful, but there's something missing. And so you stop, you get quiet, and you read again, and suddenly the words they become radiant and alive in a new way. But I'm not done yet. I want to go deeper. So I stop, and I keep stopping and waiting. And I could take the same passage, the same 4 lines, and I could read it, the 4 lines. And of course, all of what is Savitri? A legend and a symbol. So every line, every word in Savitri becomes a symbol, a portal to open to your psychic being, to open to your true self, to open to the divine, to open to surrender more completely to the mother. Well, what I'm suggesting is just in exactly the same way you do that with Savitri, you can do it with this. Oh, that's a cup. I mean, if everyone here looks at this and immediately senses this is the Brahman in this form, then you don't need this class. And if you see the ugly fruit and you see the watermelon and you go to lunch, when we're not in satsang, when you're just walking around and we come together for lunch, we're talking about this and that. If you hear every sound and see every sight and feel every sensation as the Brahman consciousness, there's a great little conversation with Sri Aurobindo. He's talking to his doctor. I forget his name. And the doctor says, but Master, what is it like? What is it like? And Sri Aurobindo talks in such simple language. He says, I see you, the bookshelves, the wall, everything as the Brahman. I see nothing but the Brahman here. I know nothing but the Brahman here. So we're looking at what is the integral yoga in the simplest language? What is a symbol? This is a symbol. And how does knowing about symbolism help us to open? Well, I just gave you an example. So I see the coffee cup, and you can feel just as I can feel when I'm hearing, we are not just a death-bound littleness. That's a beautiful line. Secret Knowledge, Book 1, Canto 4. Death-bound. Does that reverberate through your entire being? You really death-bound. We are not just. Every word's important. Not just death-bound. Littleness. Come back. Now, we come back to the coffee cup, the symbol. Can this coffee cup evoke the same, or at least some measure of the profundity and the resonance and the vibration? Is the Brahman ultimately more present in those lines? It's more manifest, but ultimately more present in those lines than in this coffee cup. Leaving some space to really let this settle in. Coffee cup's gone. Is the Brahman, if you felt the Brahman in the coffee cup, is it less present? Right? You know all this. Okay. Now, I'm going to come back as the Divine Mother speaking through Radhika asked the perfect question for the last phase of this presentation. As Vladimir pointed out, as long as you're living in those preferences, and I think if we're honest, no matter how many decades we've been in this, no matter how much our consciousness has evolved, that we can see preferences in the being. We may not identify with it. We may have this constant movement of offering, let Mother take it over. You see it. Okay. The question is, can I be honest and see it, and then through Mother's grace or through whatever movement, let it go enough so in the mountain view, in the lines of Savitri, in those positive, most positive manifestations, in the neutral forms of the book or the coffee shop, apparently neutral, or in the ugly fruit or whatever, and I feel feel, see, hear, think, touch the same, to some extent, the same vibration. Does that make sense? Are there any questions about what I'm saying? Challenges. I love challenges. Any challenges to what I'm saying? Jayashri, did it make more sense, a little more sense? Did I explain myself at all why I thought it was valuable? This little experiment of trying to, yeah. I'm not asking us to go back to our, yeah, I'm saying, can we find a million different ways? I would love to do this. If we did this seminar every day for the next year, and there were 37 people, we could have 365 times 37 different ways of describing integral yoga and symbols, and how symbols relate to integral yoga, how to find the divine in positive, negative, and neutral. So I'm going to sum up the talk again. We're looking at how do I see, understand, get integral yoga in infinite ways, from the most complex, most simple. Believe me, Jayashri, I love philosophic conversations. If we want to talk about the ontology and epistemology of the Brahman, I'm up for that too, just it's not today's topic. Similarly, to see many different ways of understanding what symbols are. To see how knowing symbols, I mean, that exercise we did with Charles and Teresa, just exploring the love, the bond, the yin yang, the hidden, the secrecy. There's a whole, guys, you should write a book about that. There you go. There's Teresa, Charles, that's your next book. You know, the hidden yoga of our living room cabinet. And there we go. Just share the proceeds with us, and or the grass. So how does symbolism help us with the integral yoga? And how do we learn to see and let go of and offer up the preferences? So even in, I'm going to read what Stacey wrote, even in ugly fruit, or in the rubble of an earthquake where thousands of lives were destroyed. What is integral yoga? What are symbols? How do they support each other? And how do we see symbols in the good, the neutral, and the unpleasant? That makes sense? Stacey just wrote, when several people shared what they saw as the meaning of the symbol, the blue cabinet, yes, it opened my eyes to see more than my normal sight. Integral yoga is about opening your eyes to what is more than normal sight, to recognize that which sees through the eyes, but the eyes don't see, that hears through your ears, but the ears don't hear, which appears as symbolism, but symbols themselves don't know. A new line for the Upanishad. Any questions? Is everyone at this moment, are you seeing all things in your home and everywhere as the Brahman? Have I succeeded? If I've succeeded, you're now feeling, seeing. The Tibetans have a saying to see all as mandala and hear all as mantra. Boy, I'll tell you, if you can hear the sound of my voice as divine mantra, I've really done something amazing. The next person who speaks, no one's going to want to speak now. We're going to hear as divine mantra. Who wants to speak up? Come on, someone. I want to hear the sound of the divine, the mantric sound of your voice. I've terrified everybody. Jane is reaching for her. Me, unmute? No, okay. There's no questions. Everyone is awake.
This was the mantric sound of the Brahman. Silence. Total silence.
Okay. So the sounds are not Brahman.
No, that was the silence of the sound of the Brahman, and this, what I'm saying, is also the sound of the Brahman.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that if my sound is the sound of the Brahman, that silence was not the sound of the Brahman.
Right. Is the sound more or less Brahman? Do we have Brahman plus one, the full? If we add to the full, is it more Brahman?
It's very important to look from the emptiness or from the beginning. For myself, I describe it always, I have to shift to look at everything as a first time, or to see it with the eyes of God, who is
Yes.
unborn. Can you imagine you're unborn and you look at this
Yes.
world?
Right.
And everything, wars, killing, death, suffering, everything is such an adventure,
Yeah.
such an interesting event, because you have that look,
Right.
a secured look of the infinity. And so everything what happens here, in whatever form, even ugly form, so-called ugly form,
Right.
is an event which cannot be otherwise repeated. It's a unique event, and that uniqueness has its beauty, has its charm, has its something to learn about the divine. Some infinite qualities are there, which are attracting us, attracting our soul.
That's beautiful. Let me give an exercise right now for everyone to look as if looking with eyes for the first time. You're walking through a forest. It's a beautiful, beautiful forest. But it's one you've been through, you've sort of gotten used to it. Your mind's gotten habituated to it. When you first went there, you were like, my God, these leaves, it's a fall day and the colors are glorious, and the glint of the sunlight against the leaves and the grass. And you stand there mesmerized, the flow of the leaves on the water, little stream running beside you. And now you've been there, you go every day for about a year, and it's like, oh, you're talking with a friend, and it's leaves, and it's like, oh. And you come to a clearing, the trees are going away, you come to a field, and there is a huge, 20 feet in diameter, luminous, glorious, diamond-like sphere. And your mind goes completely silent. You've never seen this before. It's as if you've just been born. You've never seen it. Absolute, not just stillness, but powerful stillness everywhere. The air is alive, and you can feel the presence, so divine, the radiance of this divine light. Now, here's the question. What happened? You had brought the same quality to that path the first time you were there. The person who tells this story says, we have the capacity to see everything. Don't look away. Use your peripheral vision to look at your room. Aren't you, you're used to everything. Does your room evoke the same majesty and glory as that luminous sphere? Why not? What is it now? It's not the room, right? It's not the room. The Brahman is just as present. What is it in our consciousness? I'm asking rhetorically, I'm not asking for an answer. What is it? One of it is what Radhika said, preferences, but egoic preferences. I like this cabinet, I don't like that cabinet. I'm glad it was a blue color, I wish it wasn't. I don't like the blues. I have another keyboard, that blue keyboard doesn't look good there. Oh, look, you can see the pedal. And suddenly I'm back in ordinariness. Now, what happens if we look at our room and look at each other? We know each other, right? Oh, that's Vladimir, that's Jayashri, that's Jane, Radhika, whatever. I know you. I don't need to see you because I know you. You know what I mean? I don't need to see you as if for the first time. I remember going to La Grasse for the first time and meeting these absolutely amazing people. I was just so blown away talking to Vladimir, and Radhe. Radmir. Anyway, to Vladimir and Radhe. Radhe, okay. And I'm not saying they're any less amazing, but now it's like, oh, I know Vladimir, I know Radhe, right? There are moments. I met Jan, our anniversary is August 15th, 1993, our friendiversary. Okay? Now, we do treasure that there are moments when It's moments of grace when it's if I'm seeing her for the first time. I had a conversation with Vladimir and Manoj Pavitran on Wednesday, and I've been hearing Vladimir talk about the faculties of consciousness for over 20 years. And there are moments where I glimpse what I can tell I'm hearing this from my surface mind, so I let go. And I didn't tell you, Vladimir, there was moments, I don't remember what it was, but you said something that's like, it's like that luminous sphere was there. We're in the same place. It's the same thing, the same words I've heard 1,000 times. I've read all of these things in the faculties, and suddenly like, and there were moments in Jayashree's class, okay, dreams. I'm an expert on this. I've read this stuff. I know about yoga of sleep. I've read everything, Mother. And then suddenly she said something like, Radhe was talking about Ayurveda. Oh my God, I've read everything on Ayurveda. I'm an expert. I know all that, and I'm trying, to let go. This is the yoga, and this is all, relating to what are the words reflecting that's deeper? And what are my preferences that are keeping me from seeing this? So to sum up everything, it's like in as plastic and open way as possible, so that integral yoga is new every day. Thank you, Vladimir. This is perfect summary for this. How can I've been doing this for 46 years. How can I wake up this morning as if it's new, like I read a word from Savitri or essays, and and I think about symbolism. It's like, oh my God, I've been reading about symbolism since 1970. And it's like, I never understood what a symbol was. What is this? And I think the toughest one is we who pursue spiritual growth. I'll speak for myself, but it seems, if it's familiar to you, take it in. There's so much, Mother and Sri Aurobindo particularly have given us such infinite riches, and we have this, we can fall into the error of thinking we have to make ourselves be, equal, generous, think of the quality, I should be sincere and humble and generous and persevere, and oh my God, it's like this weight, right? That's of course not what they're saying. I shouldn't have preferences. Okay, I really like you a lot. Oh my God, right? But if we're sincere, right? If we're truly sincere, we see there's preferences, there's vital, instinctive, physical, mental preferences. And we can, I'll use the cliche, we can step back, we can open, right? Open our hearts. And suddenly the same person for whom we had that negativity, the experience is transformed. I thought of one more example. This is really good. This is going back to Sharon's comment about how seeing yourself as an actor is not necessarily pulling back and being stuck, but actually entering more. I interviewed this will be my final summary. I interviewed about 2,000 people doing disability evaluations. These are people who, as one person put it, their life is a complete train wreck. And many times, if they did not get disability compensation, they couldn't afford health insurance, and they would die. I often got calls from a lawyer saying, you could cancel your appointment with Mr. Jones today. He died in the hospital 2 nights ago. Now, there are some people, some of those 2,000, they came in and I felt like, oh, I just love these people. They're so wonderful, And some people will come in just kind of, neutral, right? Just like, and I'm doing my job. And if I didn't fall in love with them in some sense, and I would do a long history. It took up to a half hour, every detail of their life. And by the way, when you do disability evaluations, in order to be eligible for disability, you have to be really, really, really messed up. So I tell them, listen, you don't know me, I don't know you, but I'm going to ask you in the next half hour to tell me everything that's the worst possible things of your life. Every screw up, every mix up, and we're going to laugh about it and we'll cry about it. And usually they were, motivated to get some money, they do it. And part of what I'm doing during that half hour is like, I'm opening to the possibility of falling in love with them. And I found the only people I really had trouble with, there are people who are psychopaths. They really enjoy inflicting pain on them. And they tell me, yeah, you know, I said this, and they were like falling on the floor. That was the hardest. But I knew I could not write a report that was helpful for them unless I opened up enough to see the divine, to find something in them. So what I'm inviting you to do is wake up every morning, every moment, as if you're open to yoga for the first time, to open to seeing everything as symbol, to with great sincerity recognize, don't deny it, recognize the preferences that are there. And just as I was seeking to fall in love with the psychopath, as much as the person who appealed to my egoic surface personality, that the ugly fruit and the ice cream and the beautiful eggplant or whatever it is that you love, the persons, whatever, that it can be, everyone can do this, to whatever extent. To see as if for the first time, to feel and hear as if for the first time. And of course, to come back to more traditional integral yoga language, this is not going to be by your own effort. Open to whatever silence you're aware of, opening to a sense of her presence, and let her infuse the person, let her infuse the object, let her infuse your choice, not your preference, that choice. As she infuses that, those new eyes will to some extent emerge. The heart opens, you begin to fall in love with those who your ego surface personality may find unlovable. And finally, Jane has asked a question in the chat, and I actually just misspelled it. Let's get people's attention.
Maybe some point to Radhika's beginning of this. How can you choose the right thing and at the same time have an equality? Yeah, and that was the suggestion by your friend Mohit, that you have to keep the equality, and only then you will be choosing the right thing. There is a statement by the mother, the truth, whatever it may be. So this actually reconciles two positions, and the equality is actually needed for really making the right choice for you also, and for others also, because in time it is spelled out in a particular way and form, which is unique to that moment of time and context. And you cannot choose it rightly unless you are totally equal, or you look at everything as if for the first time. This is the idea of equality to make a right choice. This I was waiting for this to tell Radhika, because she started the whole thing, and it was never formulated, was never reconciled between the two. Maybe it was meant not to be reconciled. Yes,
Sorry,
Radhika.
Vladimir, can you say that again? What are you reconciling?
Between the equality and the right choice. You posted this question. Why equality is needed to make a right choice, right preference?
Yeah, I thought because Dawn had said that you should not have egoistic preferences. So here mother was saying that so I'm going to read off her quote. She says, you must be in a perpetual state of choice. At every minute of your life, you must make a choice between what drags you down and what draws you up, between what makes you progress and what makes you go backwards. So so are you saying that being equal, and which I interpret as like Well,
Having no preference, yes.
Right.
yeah. So how do you know what makes you progress and what makes you go backwards? Because I can go up in different dimensions. I can go up in the dimension of sincerity. I can go up in the dimension of empathy. I mean, so in mother's symbol, there are, going back to symbols, mother's symbol has 12 attributes. So when I make a choice, am I choosing one of those 12 attributes, or am I choosing something that is reconciling all 12 of those attributes at the same time with one choice? Because Mohit and I were having a discussion about this. That's why I'm able to speak about this. He's Mohit Bansal. Mohit Bansal, he is in the, he's active in the Sri Aurobindo Ashram Delhi branch. He's on Twitter and he posts a lot of works from the mother. And I had asked him about this concept of not having preferences, and we had a long, and like even now it is still continuing conversation. So yeah, I'm sorry, Don, I kind of hijacked your presentation.
No, it's perfect. Let me answer.
Can
respond
I,
to
can
another-
I, can I
Let me
say
just respond to
something?
her thing, then Sangeeta next. I have to make a choice right now whether to continue with Sangeeta's question or answer Radhika's. And I may have an egoistic preference to go ahead, go back, whatever, right? If I first become equal, it doesn't matter to me, Don, who's going to speak next or how to speak or what words to say. I then can open to a deeper sense of what choice to make. As I just wanted to say it. So let me go on to Sangeeta now. I'm sorry, Sangeeta. Just wanted to.
Actually, it was in response to Radhika. Radhika, I also know the Delhi ashram really well, and Taradi. I just want to say this, when the symbol of the two intersecting triangles of Sri Aurobindo's symbol, the upward pointing triangle and the downward pointing triangle, in my understanding, what that means is that there's a choice and then another choice. And what that does is the mother says one thing, and then she says the opposing thing, or seems to be the opposing thing.
Right.
So what actually is being done is neutrality. She's neutralizing through these mechanisms almost all the thoughts and choices and preferences, so that we just don't become equanimous and equality oriented, but also we create a space where the divine forces can actually come through. Because if we're still with thoughts, preferences, this, that, and the other, and intellect, then we're still not that space for the divine forces to just be able to come through and do whatever is required for that moment through us. And so for me, that's how I see her seemingly contradictory teachings. It's to bring it to neutralization point.
Sangeeta, can I check with you? See if this, I'm going to rephrase that and tell me if I've got what you're saying. Okay. So it came to me to attempt to rephrase what Sangeeta just said. And once again, I'm making choices. There are choices to be made. And I can feel as I'm speaking, where am I speaking from? What is speaking right now? Is there a feeling of urgency, meaning my own private, personal urgency, or is there a sense of a force coming in, forming the words? As that's, even with there being some measure of the space that Sangeeta talked about, there's a space, there's an opening for the force to come through. At the same time, with sincerity, there's a noticing at every moment. That to me, that's where there's perpetual choice. At every moment, there's the possibility of seeing very subtly preferences, egoistic preferences coming in, blocking the force, closing the space, you can almost feel this. You feel that opening, you feel her presence, and if you get caught up in the action, identifying with it, you may not realize the silence has kind of receded. The force is no longer the force of the divine, but it's a force of your own. It's not black and white like that. I want to give another example, Radhika, where we all know this very concretely. You finished a meal and you have something else to eat. And you know in your mind, your body doesn't need that, right? Everyone knows this, right? If there's anyone here who's never, ever had this problem, please speak up, but I'm assuming we all know this. Okay. In that moment, you have to make a choice. Now, if we make that choice from our surface personality, there's going to be a reaction, right? Sri Aurobindo describes a mental, moral choice versus, he describes rejection as mental or moral versus spiritual. Jayashri, another reason why I'm looking for so many different words, there was words that we're familiar with, but if I know all of this and I'm still eating the extra cookie, then I don't get it. I know it, I don't get it. So I'm looking to see, do I really get what it is to have no egoistic preferences and make perpetual choice? That could be the theme of this whole presentation.
Maybe I should would love to add something. The problem with us, with me as myself, that we are very complex human beings. We are not one self, which is, having one decision and then following it, and that is me. There is me who is very spiritual and very loving the presence, higher presence, Brahmin consciousness, and everything else. And even more, there is someone psychic in me who wants to constantly grow and to discover the divine in every form and to convert myself and the whole world into the divine prototype. And at the same time, there is in me, the dogmatic me, who speaks several languages, thinks in several languages. In each language, it's a different personality, and differently viewing the world. Different values of the world are popping up. And there is vital personality with several layers, and each one of them has its own life, its own demand, its own waiting for its time to pop up and to grab the extra cookie. Mm-hmm. And there is a physical being who is tired of all this battlefield and this and it is constantly praying, please make order in this kingdom. I want to be one and alone. And so because of this complexity of our psychology, we cannot really address ourselves as something that I didn't understand. I understood by this being, but that being far from understanding. Other being is far from understanding and wanting to comply.
When I'm saying, do you understand? It's you just articulate exactly. In fact, I would like to invite people, what Vladimir just talked about is exactly what I'm writing about on the LaGrasse blog. You can maybe, Roddy, maybe you could send out the link, or Vladimir can send it out. When I say, do you understand what I'm saying about integral yoga or symbolism? I'm not saying, do you understand it psychically only? Do you understand it spiritually? Do you understand it with your thinking mind? Do you understand it with your physical and vital mind? Does your vital being understand? Because we're all about, to come back to traditional integral yoga language, we're all about transformation, integration. So when Radhika is asking the question, how do we distinguish ego, I'm putting in my words, egoic preferences and choice, we're not just saying, are you distinguishing it? Or a major question is, how are you distinguishing it? You're distinguishing it only with your thinking mind? Is there a mental, there can be perhaps not direct contact with the psychic in the moment, but there's a mental intuition you have access to. You may have access to an intuition from the higher mind. You may have contact with the psychic, but the vital is not connected. So then you check. Another example came to me. When I was studying modern classical music, I was a composer back in my teens. They introduced us to modern music. Modern being, I don't know if you know this, I wish I could play an example, but Schoenberg, Webern, Berg, this very dissonant, that sounds ugly to most people. And I didn't know anything about yoga at the time, but we were taught, if you listen, not just listen, you listen with your whole being. And you'll notice a sense of aversion. You'll notice a sense of judgment. And you keep letting go of that, letting go of that, letting go of that. And suddenly this horribly, hideously cacophonous, ugly, dissonant music of Arnold Schoenberg, it has the same beauty as that luminous sphere out in the forest. So yes, that's perfect in terms of sincerity. Again, Vladimir's answer to, you have to close. Vladimir's answer to Radhika, that are we checking our preferences in all parts of our being? Okay, that's another session. Radhika's telling me it's time to go.
No, I just see some people dropping off, so I just want to make sure if there's final things you want to say that they get to hear it, but I think that's an excellent way of concluding here. So
I know this is unusual. Thank you all. This is an unusual presentation, a bit of a challenge, but thank you for your participation, and I hope it was worthwhile for some of you at least. Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
Okay.
Thanks, Don.
Thank you, Don, for Brahmin consciousness was very tangible. Nobody wanted to speak. Everybody dived into it. And,
Okay. Bye-bye.
lovely.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.